Hello, this is Coach Tim Campbell, and I'm your host for the Self-Made is a Myth, Make a Difference Together show, where we're talking with successful business owners to hear their stories of the journey to building their business. And because we know that success in business is not something that we can do on our own, we recognize the folks that have helped us to excel. I'm excited to have a fellow business owner from Indiana with us today. My guest, check this out, is a high school dropout that never received a diploma, but does have a college degree. So we're going to want to ask him about that. He enjoys playing games with his family and as well as hunting. And he's most proud of his family. And this is awesome. And being a Vikings fan for over 45 years without them winning a single championship. It is my pleasure to welcome Jerry to the show. Hello, Jerry.
Hello, Tim. Thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure. Well, let's start with having you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit of your personal story, like where you were born, where you live, and about your family.
Yeah. So I was, as my identification of a Vikings fan identifies, I was actually born in Minnesota, and way back in the '60s, and I grew up there and loved the seasons, loved the winters and all that stuff. And as a matter of fact, even we had a little respite. Anyways, a time frame that we moved down to Florida for 6 years, and I'm like, get me out of here. I need those seasons back again. So that's part of what brought me back to Indiana. But married 31 years ago to my beautiful wife Janet, and who has put up with me for these 31 years. Huge asset in my life. So I mean, it's amazing. So there's a lot behind all that as well. But we have 6 children. 5 daughters that are in their 20s, and then one unexpected surprise that of a son that was born. He's now 13 years old, and my funny story that my daughter, now they get familiar with all my stories, and so but the story about that is that we didn't think things worked after you turned 40, and so because people go, oh, you're going after that boy, and it's like, no, we didn't think things worked, and we just thought we were done, and surprise. So
that's awesome. So tell us a little bit more about the no high school diploma but college degree. That's fascinating.
Right. Yeah, so they nowadays have some programs for dual credit or post-secondary. Different states have different things, and back then they didn't have that. But I was just ready to be done with high school, and I heard about another of my friends who a year earlier than me, was a year older than me, and she left high school after her junior year and went on to college. And people think that there's a myth that colleges need a high school diploma in order for them to accept you, and that's not true. But most people do it that way, and so I just kind of said, you know what, I'm done. Let's move on. So I went to college, got my 4-year degree, and at that point, it's irrelevant whether I have my high school diploma.
Yeah, wow, that is a fun story. Thank you for sharing. So, Jerry, tell us about how the business came about, and at what point did you have the confidence that you could run your own business?
It's an interesting. Well, first of all, we were in full-time ministry, worked with high school students for 19 years, and in Minnesota for 13 of those years, and down in Orlando at the headquarters for 6 years. And we thought we'd be lifers because we love it. One of the key pieces of who I am as a person is impact. I want to make an impact in people's lives. And so when we were down in Orlando, we had this thought about do we want to move on? We had a marriage issues going on and personal issues going on, and just kind of like, what, do we want to consider another option? And as we began to investigate, we started to dream, I guess is what it came down to. And as we began to dream, we began to really feel led by God to say, nope, it's time for you to move on. And so we began to look at options, and my wife called me from a Great Harvest bread company in Bloomington, Illinois, and said, I think I found the perfect business for us. And so we began to investigate the option of opening up our own Great Harvest, possibly in Orlando. But we also really wanted to get back to the Midwest. And as we expressed that to the franchise when we put our application in, one of the things that we that she asked us about is where we were from, and my wife said she's from the Lafayette, Indiana area. And as a result, she was like, "Well, do you know that that bakery is for sale?"
Oh,
And we're
wow.
like, "Okay, let's do it." So it
Wow.
took us about a year after that point, but made our move to Lafayette and jumped ourselves in. And part of a funny story with that is the fact that we actually, my wife grew up in small town Camden, Indiana,
Okay.
600 some odd people there, and I grew up in Minneapolis, St. Paul, large city, and then we moved to Orlando and all that stuff. And she keeps talking. She kept talking about wanting to move to a small community, and I'm like, that would just kill me. It's like, I can't handle that. 600 some people. It's like, and so, but the interesting thing is that this Lafayette community has been a perfect fit for us
Mm,
in a lot of different ways. But one of those being that the size, good fit for me and for her, and
yeah.
it's a great place. So, and the people are awesome. But
Wonderful. So what an incredible way that God guided and directed you.
sure, yes.
So Jerry, tell us a little bit more about the company.
So Great Harvest is a Freedom franchise, and the cool thing about the Freedom franchise is that it is all about me as a local business owner. Everyone is locally owned, and so it's me as a local business owner being able to take my bakery and fit it for what my community wants and to do what I want to do. So there's no cookie cutter within Great Harvest. There are a lot of recipes that I use and follow. People would expect certain breads and the honey whole wheat or something like that you can get from store to store. But honestly, I don't need to do those. But because they're so popular across the system and across the nation, it's like, well, of course I'm going to do those. So, and they're proven. Excuse me. So, but one of the things about it is that I really do. I'm also able to take my entrepreneurship desires and put it to action,
Mm.
and be able to make that happen in how I want to make this bakery work for our community and for us. And so it's been a great fit, and we've really enjoyed being a part of it. So,
That's awesome.
and as relates to the business itself, I mean, we so I mean, it's interesting. We're called Great Harvest Bread Company. The interesting thing is that there's another bread company called Panera Bread Company, and we were actually just there this morning. It's our annual tradition to go to there for get bagels for the first day of school. So I'm not anti Panera, and people even comment, "Is that your competition?" It's like, no, it's actually not my competition because our mainstay is bread. We sell an average 150 to 200 loaves a day
Wow.
of bread. And when I asked one of the guys I knew at Panera, I said, "How many loaves of bread do you guys sell on a given day?" And he goes, "Oh, maybe 10, maybe 12, 10 or 12." And so it's like, but and that's not their model. It's not who they are. And so, but for us, we are a bread store, and so as a result of that, we started making sandwiches a number of years ago because we thought, man, we've got a great bread. What makes it better? But that is a huge part of what makes a great sandwich. So let's start making sandwiches, and and then catering and other things like that. So
Yeah, and I know you were talking offline earlier about catering a number of sandwiches. So you can do big events as well, from what I understand. Is that correct?
right, we've catered up to 500 box lunches on a given day. This past week, we had 25, 30 different catering orders, and did over 750 sandwiches that we catered, let alone people coming in for individual sandwiches and for their group of people or whatever type thing. So yeah, it was a crazy busy week last week.
So Jerry, share a story where someone pushed you or inspired you that you could do it, even though you may not have thought you could, and what the impact that they had on you.
Well, kind of going back to a question you asked earlier that I didn't address the same, but and how it fits into with this as well. But one of the interesting things about when you talk about how I, what was the question? How I knew I could be successful or
Successful, yeah.
yeah. What's interesting to me is that I, we all have our woundedness as a child and different things that happen and different messages we believe and lies or whatever type thing. And so and then we compensate for those things. And so when what's interesting to me is that when I first began into this business, I had the mentality, I can do this. I've got this. Because I was overcompensating for that the messages that I really felt that honestly that I felt that I couldn't do it, that
Sure.
I wasn't adequate. I didn't have what it takes. And so I was the confidence was there, but internally it wasn't there.
Mm,
And so the answer to your just the question you just asked is that I didn't need anybody because it's like, well, I don't need anybody. I got this. I can do this myself. And don't tell me what to do and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And so, but when we had a huge failure in our business back 2011, 2012, we bought a second Great Harvest in the Indianapolis area, and of course I did a dang good job here in Lafayette. I could do a great job, bang up job down in Indianapolis as well, and it flopped. It didn't do well. I couldn't manage it. I couldn't handle it, personally, and plus and everything else that was going on just in the business itself, and a lot of nuances with that. So, but it was through that lesson that I really began to realize, hey, I don't have what it takes, and number one, well, I do have what it takes, but I need to find people around me and stuff like that. And so we had several people come around us at that time. I had a guy named Jeff Pence that helped, and his wife Corrine, that helped us significantly in trying to figure out if it's the right thing, if we can make this thing work, the second store, or if we need to release it. And then I had, once that did wrap up, there was a business guy in town that offered to do a low interest loan to, we bankrupted out that company, but we still had some residuals of that we took against us personally or against the business here. And so as a result, we had this guy help us out to offer us a loan and give us some input on how do we pick the pieces back up again. And then of course we had two other pieces of the puzzle that were still outstanding as far as our business loan for the current business that we hadn't paid off yet at that point, and the owner of that was very gracious to to hold back and let us take time to pay it off. And so we got a lot of those, and of course through that process, a lot of input and a lot of help for us to be able to say, how do we focus back here, and what is valid for me as an entrepreneur to expand and go versus to sit back and say, no, I need to just take what I have and really do well with what I have, what I already have going on. So that's a huge lesson for us. So
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. A lot of us, myself included, do have that baggage that we bring forward from our childhood, right? And we do overcompensate for that. And our mindset is 90% of whether we're going to be successful in our business or not, and right, and the messages that we tell ourselves in our head, and to your point, whether we're honest with ourselves about those messages so that we can have the opportunity to work through them and sort them out and right, be able to do the things that are required in our business. So I appreciate you sharing that with us.
yeah, and that's part of my word impact that I love to see that we are about here in this community and with others. But I have a men's group that I've been leading, that we're helping other men to see some of those areas in their lives and how do you deal with them effectively and stuff like that. So it's pretty it's kind of my story, and then how I can be involved in helping others to find that their story continue to along the journey. So
Yeah, that's awesome. So Jerry, over the years, what would you say is your biggest learning as a business owner?
I answered that question. I have it right here. Don't have my glasses on, so I can't see very well. What question number was that?
6.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess it really comes down to, I think I already shared that. It just basically really trying to understand, what the reality is that I need other people. Number one, number two, that I need to not take so much. I need to assess myself effectively and be able to, at that point, be able to, make decisions, whether it be expansion or not, or whatever it may be, but also be satisfied. I think that was the thing, is that, one of the things that my wife has identified and we had to work through in our marriage through the years is my bigness. I was born 10 pounds, 2 ounces, and I was big for the get-go, and so, so I've had to realize, it's like, hey, my bigness is not my identity. It's not who I am. My size, I can't adjust that very much, but I can, adjust how big I come across and how demanding or how big I express myself to other people. So I think that's a huge thing that I've had to learn, and that I don't need to have a second location, a third location, and be growing and big, in order to be okay about who I am.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you again for your transparency, and I know that'll help a lot of people listening to this because we don't have to be fake, right? We don't have to pretend that we're someone that we're not. God's created us to be exactly who we are, and we all have individual skills, and when we leverage those, we're going to be successful in whatever we do. So
Yeah,
appreciate your vulnerability.
yeah.
So, Jerry, we know business success doesn't happen in isolation. So, tell us about one of your challenges that you've had over the years and a fellow business owner who came along to help you get through that.
Um, I think more specifically, as far as the aftermath of the closure of our second location and be able to focus back here, I really appreciated, my brother was significant in my life. He's been a business owner for longer than I have, I think, since he was probably about 30 some years, I think.
Mm.
And he's really has helped me to think through what we need to do as far as focusing in, how I can, and even right now, I think one of our biggest challenges we're experiencing now that he's guiding and helping me with as well, but is the, um, I'm 55 years old and I don't have the stamina that I had, even 5 or 10 years ago. And so when we had 750 box lunches and stuff going out last week, and I have to pick up the slack in order to,
Sure.
and a couple of people did as well. I'm not diminishing what they did as well, but I had to work a lot of hours last week. I got exhausted. It's like I can't manage this anymore. It's like it's difficult. And ironically, we had a guy who was about 50 years old who started working for us one day. He jumped in. He was going to work for us one day last week. He started last week. He worked one day and said, "I can't handle this pace." And I'm like, "Tell me about it." And so, but he wasn't the business owner, so he didn't have he had a choice, and
Yeah.
so he walked away from the job, and
Yeah.
I blessed him for that. I mean, that was that, but and so my challenge that I'm experiencing right now is trying to figure out how do I then take what find people, whether it be a general manager or whether it be other people that are in key positions.
Yeah.
And I've tried some of that, and unfortunately, some of them have not been the right people. They've had the heart, but maybe not the skills to be able to effectively lead and take other people to the next level, as well as our business to the next level. So that's the biggest challenge, and my brother's given me some books to read and some other ideas and stuff like that. And so, but I also have a good friend. His name is Rob, and he's been real significant as well to kind of help me be a bounce ideas off of. And so, yeah. So and yeah. So
What's your brother's name?
his name is John.
John. All right. Awesome.
John Lecy.
Yeah. Wonderful.
So,
Yeah, having whether it's reading books or outside people to talk to, being able to share ideas and bounce ideas off of people. It's been a tough market the last couple of years finding good quality people, right? With the whole mass exodus or the Great Resignation. And so one of the things that we help business owners with is that idea of let's make sure we get the right people on the bus, right? They fit the culture, right? They're aligned to the vision of the company, because it's easier to teach a skill than it is to find a good cultural fit. And then teaching those skills can take time, right? As a busy business owner, we would love it to be like you train them once and they pick it up and they run with it. But the reality is, right, it's going to take multiple times, and or having a manual or a video or something in place that they can refer back to when they forget, because inevitably they're going to forget, and we're oftentimes too busy to be able to continue to remind them of the things that they forget. So
right. Well, and you mentioned the climate change. I mean, the change in the last couple of years. I mean, one of the things that's been interesting is that this whole push in different states and different across the nation about the minimum wage.
mm,
Well, the reality is that I don't care what's legislated or not. That minimum wage has gone way up for me,
sure.
and so I can't. I used to hire literally 6 years ago. I'd hire somebody $8.50 an hour, and within the first month, you'd either get fired or get a raise, and possibly that was $9, maybe nine and a quarter, $9.50. And now it's like, man, I can get some high school kids for maybe nine, maybe 10, but more likely 10. And then but of course other people it's 11, 12, 13, 14,
Right.
15 an hour that I have to be able to make that work. And so that's been a huge thing that's impacted the business. so it's not just inflation that's caused my bread prices and sandwich prices to go up, but that's part of it as well.
Sure, absolutely. So, Jerry, if I asked you to pick three people in your business owner journey that you're most grateful for being there for you to help you with your overall business growth, who are they and how'd they help you?
Well, I've already mentioned my brother John. That'd be one, and a guy named Jeff Kessler who owns a jewelry store in town. He's been there on several occasions. He and his wife and my wife and I sat down on a couple occasions just to dialogue through some situations and how do we, and he's given some wisdom and input into what I had to do. As a matter of fact, he gave the wisdom probably. I believe this was before. Maybe it was after, but I think it was before we took over that second location.
Yeah.
That he talked about because we were always talking about going to the west side, so having a location on the west side, and he was just cautioning me against that that really it could make an impact, and you diversify and all that kind of stuff, and obviously I didn't listen to him, and so we not only didn't go to the west side of Lafayette, but we went down to Indianapolis, and obviously he was right. I mean, and so, but the good news is that he was there as well afterwards to help me pick up the pieces and move on from there. And then I would say, and I want this guy to go unnamed, but his name is Terry. I'll say it that, I guess. But he's a business owner. He's actually retired now. Business owner in town that he was the one that helped us with that finances and consolidating, and as well as just again getting us back on track with where we need to be, and give them the vision, kind of helping help me think through the vision for what we want to be about. And I think that word impact, going back to that word impact, that's what we want to be about. And for us to have 5 different locations, how am I effectively going to be able to impact people unless I have the right people in place? And this becomes extra all the more difficult to make that happen. So those people's.
Yeah. So, Jerry, as you think about the next 3 to 5 years, what are the biggest challenges you're going to face to get to your goals, and who are the types of people you're going to need to help you get through those?
Well, as I look ahead, I mean, I really, as I already mentioned, that that whole issue of my age and trying to how do I effectively do this. I really do need. I've been dialoguing already with some people as it relates to how do we reorganize our business so that we can have effective leadership in place. But unfortunately, we're doing well financially, but we're not doing great. I think that faux pas of the second location kind of hit us big, and so up until about 2-3 years ago, we finally paid all that stuff off, and so all I have to say is that I can't just afford to say, well, gee, I'll just take a cut and pay by 50%, and no big deal. I'll have somebody else run my business, and I can't afford to do that. So I've still got to figure out how do I supplement that, or how do I make that work, and find the right people in the right situations. And I think that's where there's 2 people that I need in general. One is the people that are helping me, with like my brother and who's the other person that we were talking with about that. Anyways, that they're helping me think through the organizational aspect of things. Oh, his name is Doug Griffin. Has been helping me think through how do I do that effectively. And then the second people, of course, that I need around me are those people that will step up into those roles to be effective in running the place without me there, and growing the business even greater than what it is. So.
Yeah, it's an often a conundrum of, right, do we invest in the growth and what we need for the next couple years, right? And then there's that challenge of, well, how do I lean forward into that? So my coach always challenges me. She says, well, Tim, are you going to plan for success, or are you going to plan for failure, right? And then it's like, okay, well, that's a good great question. I'm going to plan for success, and then we get into the details in terms of, all right, now what are the baby steps, right? What are the things that you need to do in order to start moving towards hiring those people and figuring that out. So,
right, and I think, and that's one of the things that Doug has been helping me think through is about having them, the new people I hire, set goals and kind of holding the standards about accountability and stuff like that. Because if they are, if I bring them on just to manage, then I'm going to lose money. It's not going to do well.
Yeah.
But if I bring them on to and they say, hey, this is your goals. You need to set goals and pursue this and this, and again, make the business grow. At that point, then we'll begin to see the return financially happening. And so then, I don't need to be, our sales will go up, which will help the bottom line in my pocket.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Setting key performance indicators or goals for our employees is critical. It's not something that most of us do or think to do, but left to our own doing, we're all going to be less effective and less efficient than we could be. So, having those goals in place, holding our team accountable to them, having regular check-ins and reviews with them really helps to accelerate their performance. And then the other thing, you kind of alluded to it earlier, is the principle of, hire slow and fire fast, right? So, take our time to make sure that they are going to be the right fit for our company, and they're going to fit into our mold and our values and our beliefs, and got the skills that are required. But then if we bring them on and they're not working out, right, we can't afford to continue to pay them. So, putting together a 90-day, ramp up plan and having the 90-day key performance indicators. And, if they're not hitting their 90-day goals, then it means that, they're not the right fit for the company.
Yeah.
So, Jerry, well, actually not if, one of my favorite authors, Jim Rohn, he says, we become the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. So as you think about this, what advice do you have for other business owners who may be trying to do it on their own?
Networking is huge, because I think that's the thing, is that if I were to, and of course my wife fits into that category as far as who I would spend the most time with. And so, but my wife is by nature a reserved, non-risk taker, and I am. And so, if I just simply listen to my wife, which, I love her to death, and she has been so good for me, because there are times when I needed to hear that caution, that I wanted to move forward on something. And so, but if I were to if I had 5 people like her around me, I wouldn't be able to, number one, excel for who God created me to be, but number 2, I wouldn't be, my business wouldn't go anywhere. And so I think that so therefore finding people around me, and that's where, finding the right people in networking. And honestly, networking groups are great, and there's some great value to some of those. However, I think that the one-on-one times and finding those people that you're like, man, I could learn something from that person,
right,
is huge, because then you'll be able to, pick their brains, and hopefully it would be a mutual, encouragement and challenge one to another in that kind of a situation. But being able to do it, more one-on-one or in small groups, as opposed to, the big groups, and just, I get to know this person, that person. But
yeah,
so.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. It makes me think of too that a lot of times I see that partner business owners often are opposite, right? And so the phrase of opposites attract, you just mentioned it, that you and your wife are opposite, my wife and I are opposite. Oftentimes business partners are opposite too, and it can be both a challenge and a frustration, right, as we rub each other. But then when we understand that we need the opposite opinion and the opposite perspective to help us, right, see the world whole and make good business decisions, then we become more open to the idea of, all right, I do want to understand, right, the opposite point of view, so that I can compare that to my point of view and make a good business decision here.
Well, and then the word respect comes to my mind in that, because obviously it is respecting the fact that, and that, that's why I don't know everything. I don't understand. I mean, in my personality, the way I operate may not get me down the right path. Right. And so I need to respect my wife. I need to respect other people and their perspective and their thoughts, because, and ultimately, there are times it is my decision, and I need to make a decision and go forward. And but I do want to hear what other people have to say, because their input and their difference in how their personality operates and how they operate differently with their businesses or whatever is valuable. And so, you know,
Yeah, makes sense. So, Jerry, last question here. If there was something catastrophic that happened to the business, who's the first person you'd call and what would you want from them?
um, well, one of the things you probably heard me alluding to, but I mean, family is huge to me, and so both my brother, as well as of course my wife, those would be the first two people that I would give a call to. But I think my friend Doug is significant in how he has been helpful, and trying to figure out what's the next steps with these things, and so. Um, yeah, it's and I think that even I think I've raised some good kids as well, and so I've got a lot of 20-something-year-old daughters and their husbands that would be significant as well to be able to gather input from and stuff like that. So yeah, part of it too is my faith in God and just the trust in the sense of that he you talk about catastrophic. I mean, I guess one can imagine kind of speculate what that would be, but I mean, but obviously it's like I need to take a rest at the moment in the fact that hey, God's in control. I'm going to trust Him. So I guess first and foremost going to Him probably, and then being able to talk to others about okay, so here's the situation. Where do we go?
Yeah, I love it. So, Jerry, it sounds like you've been blessed with some incredible people in your life that have helped you on your journey. If they were all here on the show today, what would you want to say to them?
Thank you. I am a very different man today than what I was even 5 years ago, let alone 15 years ago when we bought this business, and of course, let alone when I was 5 years old. And so, that's because of the people around me that have been willing to speak truth into my life, have been willing to show me, to give me guidance and input. And so I guess I'm speaking third person as opposed to them as you asked, but thank you is really a huge part of it because they have been so instrumental in helping me to become the man that I am today and the business owner I am today. And God knows I have a long way to go yet, but we're on the right
track. Fantastic. So, Jerry, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today, and I appreciate having you on the show.
Thanks, Tim. It's been awesome to be here. So I trust that the words of my mouth and your mouth today may impact other people and in a positive way. So.
Indeed. Awesome. So for everyone who is tuned in, thanks for listening to the Self-Made is a Myth show with your host, Coach Tim Campsell. Be sure to help us spread this movement by liking the show and posting about it on your social media. And to join our movement, go to bemadtogether.com. All right, folks, that's a wrap. Make sure to pay it forward, and I'll see you all next time. Take care.